Where are we in Bible prophecy? What is ahead? We only know in part, but this is what I'm seeing at this point. I see that there are two phases that's ahead. The first stage is there's a movement towards the covenant of peace, this Middle East peace, where Palestine will be declared a nation. When we see the people rejoicing in the streets and around the world, rejoicing when Palestine is recognized as a nation, then we'll move into the second phase, and it'll be from there to World War III. That is what the prophecies indicate. And a number of the prophets have indicated that the third seal has been opened. The first seal was opened in 2008. Later, the red horse was released. And now it's the black horse of the economic shaking of it's a beginning of the economic shaking. And I understand why this is coming forth from the prophetic at the moment. They feel, I think, with Donald Trump, with the trade war with China, that here is the beginning of what's going to eventually lead to what Shane Warren saw. He saw in a vision of draining dollars. In other words, he saw the nations, China and other nations, eventually standing up together and moving away from the dollar. Effectively, then it'll be raining dollars. So that is how that'll come about. And we've seen the beginning of that with the trade war beginning. And it's only starting now. So we need to watch the trade war. Well, it's not only with China, it's other nations as well. The other thing to watch is this Middle East peace plan with Jared Kushner and what's happening there. Because this is a covenant with many, as said in Daniel chapter 9:7. It is said that the Antichrist will confirm the covenant with many. That could be at a later stage. It's very difficult to say at this point whether that's after World War III. It could be, we could see a covenant and a treaty in a Palestinian state come into play, but it's only confirmed, this covenant, at a later time by the Antichrist. It's very difficult to say at the moment with that. But it seems that the economic trouble starts now. We see the beginning of it, what leads to that. And its fullness will be after World War III. And then I see the next seal being opened at the time of the Palestinian state being formed. And that will be the seal with the pale horse. In other words, that's with death and with what comes from war and from all the different things. You notice that the seal's released before these things actually happen. It's in the beginning of it taking place. Because that will lead basically from the time of the Palestinian state being formed. God will judge the United States according to those visions. If it goes that way, which many of the prophets have seen that it does go that way, if it goes that way, God will judge the United States, and we'll see the judgments, and then Israel will be attacked from the north, and the United States will send troops and that to help Israel, and that's when World War III sort of breaks out from Syria and from the north and leads to World War III. So it all comes from a time of weakness, which comes after the Palestinian state is formed. But the actual horse, the seal, is released at the time of the Palestinian state. We'll see that'll be the next seal will be released. But now we see the seal of the black horse being released, and it's the beginning of the economic troubles, and it's the start of the trade war, and we'll see much more that takes place. It could be in a few weeks, but it could also go over a few months. It could even go into next year. We don't really know how soon this is going to come into being. It could be a bit later, or it could be sooner. It's very hard how it's the timing of this, but we seem to be in that phase or in that season of the black horse, of economic trouble coming. And David Wilkerson spoke of also in Europe as well, being a lot of trouble there, and Japan, the United States. So just watching how this all comes together. So there's a phase now, what I term almost like a first phase is up to the Palestinian state, and then there's the second phase from the Palestinian state up to World War III. And many of the prophecies have indicated that the Lord comes for his people just before World War III, as it comes into World War III. And we can get an idea of how close we are by looking at the signs and how these things are developing, watching the trade war, watching what's happening in the Middle East, the peace plan. And that's the picture I have of how things are moving at the moment. And I feel that Shane Warren's vision is very important, because it shows that the Palestinian state happens at the time when there's a dollar collapse. They both occur at the same time. Shortly afterwards there's earthquakes, and the judgment happens with that as well on the United States. So that it all fits together with the other prophecies, and it's many different prophets have seen things, and it all ties together. And you'll see the riots and the almost civil war in the United States that already take off at that time as well. We see the beginnings of things now, the civil conflict, but it'll be much worse later on. So that is what I'm seeing right now. If we look here on the left, we see here's a prophetic vision reveals the first 3 seals already broken by Mina Lee Greben. It's a well-known prophetess in the States, and she's one who she's had a revelation that the third seal has been broken and has been opened. And I'm just going to read just one paragraph concerning Shane Warren's dreams and visions. This is just a comment here, but it summarizes, and it is true to what came forth. You can go on YouTube and actually just look at that Shane Warren's vision and get it in full. It mentions here Dimitri Duduman, Terry Bennett as well. But basically, Shane Warren, he was watching Fox News. This happened in 2010, and he went into a vision of a newscaster on television saying a huge and very unusual hurricane had formed over the whole of the United States, and it switched to a report on the ground who said it was raining dollars. Then the anchorman said, "We have another tragedy happening along the New Madrid fault line. A major earthquake with cities crumbling, fires breaking up, people protesting with signs, 'We want our entitlements.'" That is 2 things. One with the earthquakes, the dividing of the United States, because they've divided Israel. And some have seen that there's a meteor comes as well, and there's a tsunami and earthquakes on the west coast in New Madrid as well. That is much bigger than it's very significant what happened. And also at this time, it seems like because of all this trouble that comes, that they clamp down on the social social security and things like that. And you see the people protesting with the signs, "We want our entitlements." The next scene found Shane sitting in a fancy room in the Middle East where Putin, the president of China, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Turkey were talking about the American dollar. They said, if we stop using the dollar, we can bring America down. Shane heard a voice from behind him say, "They have divided my land, now I will divide theirs." And he knew he was talking about Israel and the United States. But firstly, here we see a meeting of all these leaders coming together. So basically, it's almost as if we see this trade war get worse and worse and escalate. And it has a tremendous impact on everybody. And I think that they will say in these other nations that, okay, you're increasing tariffs because you're not happy, you feel it's not fair what's happening. But that's one side of the equation. There's another side of the equation which you're ignoring, and that is the dollar being the reserve currency of the world. The United States has benefited greatly since World War II by having the dollar as the world reserve currency. So that's not being taken into account by Donald Trump. He's only looking at it on the one side, with putting tariffs, and it's not really a level playing field. And that's when Putin and the other leaders will come and say, look, you want to have it fair, then you must do away with the dollar as a reserve world's currency. That's why they stop using the dollar, because by doing that and using other currencies, then they're actually having a level playing field. They're making it fair. Where they're saying what Donald Trump is doing now is not fair. And there are two sides to this. And it's not enough just to have tariffs. But the other side is the world reserve currency. They've got to use something other than the dollar. So that is why these leaders basically take this approach. And it seems like we're seeing now only the beginning of this trade war. And it could get much, much worse until these leaders all come together and they take this action. And this will basically happen before basically it's a collapse in the dollar, and it'll be like raining dollars. And this happens at the time when Palestine becomes a state or is recognized as a country. And this is what they're saying here, that they have divided my land, now I will divide theirs. And he's talking about Israel and the United States. And Shane concluded by saying, we will see the most drastic change that has ever happened to America within the next 10 years. America will look nothing like it looks right now. That would be by 2020. And it also says, there's just a comment here that that's Dmitry Duduman said, just before the Russians attack us, America will be focused on internal revolution in the center of the country started by the communists. And that is what's happening at the moment. It's been happening for quite a while, and we've seen basically a socialist, a type of communist leadership coming in. It was for many, many years, but it's getting a lot worse, the actual, almost like a revolution. It's really getting quite heated and quite violent at times. So we see the beginnings of these things in seed form at this time. But that's the first phase. Once Palestine's declared a nation, recognized as a nation, and there's basically maybe a two-state solution, and maybe East Jerusalem may be the capital of Palestine. And if that takes place, which according to these prophecies, and it's not just one or two, there's actually many prophecies and many visions, many dreams confirming this. But once that takes place, then is the next seal, which will be basically to World War III. From there, everything will just lead on to the Third World War. So there's almost like two phases, and almost like another seal will be broken at that time. Because even though World War III will not take place right at that time, the events from there will lead into World War III. Just as now the third seal has been broken, We don't see the economic collapse right now, but the things have started. The trade war and everything that leads to it has begun, and the beginning of the economic collapse, the great shaking happens here, even on this side, even though the worst will be after World War III. So I understand where many of the prophets are coming from. They're saying recently that another seal has been broken. It's a seal with the economic shaking. It's the black seal, the black horse. The third seal has been broken. That is what they're saying, and I tend to agree with what they're saying. And they also feel that ex-President Obama still has a role in the future with things. Many have had visions and dreams that he's the beast. He's just been actually in South Africa here, where I stay. And we're just watching these things. And there's Jared Kushner as well, who's playing a tremendous role in this Middle East peace deal. But the word says that the Antichrist will confirm that covenant with many, and that will be the beginning of the final 7 years. That could happen after World War III, in the aftermath of World War III. But I think we will see the actual covenant forming, the covenant with many taking place before that. So that's how I see things. To me, it's very clear. And I'm actually very clear with that. To me, it's not vague, even though we only know in part. To me, that is how things are going to unfold. It's like a phase 1 until the Palestinian state, and then phase 2 from there to World War III. So that's what I think is ahead of us, and it helps us to look at the right things. We need to watch this trade war. We need to watch this peace plan, the unfolding of this Middle East peace plan. That's all for today. This is Apostle Derek from Revival Central, South Africa. And remember to share this video